Welcome to Completing Wisconsin 4-H Financial Records. This video is designed to help you complete the financial records portion of the Wisconsin 4-H Charter. First, let's explore why financial records are required. 4-H financial records are part of the 4-H Charter, which is the document that officially recognizes a 4-H club or group and authorizes the use of the 4-H name and emblem. 4-H is a public organization, and all money raised or received is public money. Federal regulations governing the use of the 4-H name require annual financial reporting and accountability. All funds raised in the name of 4-H, except reasonable expenses, must be used to further the 4-H educational program. The 4-H treasurer is responsible to the members, leaders, the 4-H Youth Development Educator, and the public for the use of these funds. And finally, UW-Madison Division of Extension has oversight for the 4-H financial accountability. These requirements have an impact on the 4-H club. 4-H funds must be deposited in an FDIC-insured public financial institution in an account bearing the name of the 4-H club. 4-H funds cannot be deposited under an individual's Social Security number or an individual's name. Each club must also have an EIN number or employer identification number in order to open the checking and savings account. 4-H clubs should develop a plan for managing their expenses, paying bills, and tracking their income. 4-H financial records must be audited at the end of each year by preferably 2 adults or 1 adult and 1 youth who are not related to the treasurer. Financial records are based on a fiscal year of July 1 through June 30th. So this means that the 4-H financial report can be completed any time after June 30th. The annual 4-H financial report starts on page 5 of the annual 4-H charter renewal form. This form can be located at the link which appears at the bottom of your screen, or simply search for Wisconsin 4-H charters. On this site, you will find a fillable form and a Word document which you may use. You may choose to use either of these forms. Personally, I like the fillable form because the columns in the report are automatically added for you. However, one problem with the fillable form is involved in how you save the document. At the bottom of this website, there is a page which provides you information on how to save a fillable PDF. Be sure to follow these instructions. Going back to the annual financial report, at the beginning of the first page, there are a number of boxes to fill. I have highlighted these for you. Make sure you include the name of the 4-H club or group, the date, including the year, the EIN number for the 4-H club or group, and the tax-exempt number if the club has one. Usually 4-H clubs do not have a tax-exempt number, but leaders, associations, and federations often do. Now let's look at the monetary accounting form. The first thing you will need to do is enter the beginning balances for your checking and savings account. As you look at the form, this is labeled as Annual Accounting Form, Beginning Balance, July 1st. Check your 4-H charter from the previous year to complete this column. Enter last year's balance for the checking account as this year's beginning balance. Then also enter last year's ending balance from the savings account as this year's beginning balance. This information could also be found by looking at your bank statements from the previous year. Finally, you will enter the total funds at the bottom of the column. You will notice in the example which I have given that I have entered a checking account balance from the previous year as $225.18. I have entered a savings account balance from the previous year as $565.75. In the final box in that column, I have entered the total funds from last year of $790.93. Notice that this box is labeled as A. This will become important later when we do our final report. Remember also that the fiscal year starts on July 1st and ends on June 30th. Do not leave any boxes blank. And if you are using the fillable form, be sure to enter the dollars and cents. If you do not enter these correctly, the form will not automatically fill correctly. Next, let's look at the club's income or funds received. The 4-H Club receives funds from a number of different sources, and these categories are listed on the financial report. These cannot be changed. First, fill in the money the club raised through fundraising. Do not subtract your fundraising expenses here. We will be accounting for those in another column. Include all dues that members paid to be part of this club. Fill in any donations that the club received, such as donations from other organizations or individuals within your community. Investment income includes any interest earned on the checking or savings account. Income from youth development services includes money collected for a member's participation in a youth development activity. This money typically comes from parents and is used to pay fees such as camp registration and other program fees. And finally, pass-through funds includes money that is collected as a fee and then paid in full to another organization hosting an event. The total received should be equal to the total dispersed, which we will talk about when we talk about funds dispersed. As we look at the example here, you will notice that our fundraising, the club raised $399 this year. Member dues was $100. Donations received were $50. Investment income was 18 cents. Income from youth development services was $75, and other pass-through funds was $150, for a total funds received of $774.18. Notice this box is labeled as B, and again we will get back to that as we do our final report. I have put this slide into the presentation to help you think about how you might track income within your 4-H club. You could set up an Excel sheet or a Google document to track where your funds are coming from, and then at the end of the year simply add each column, or the program you are using could add each column so that you can easily get the totals for these funds. Finally, let's look at how the club disperses its funds. You will notice on the charter document that fundraising expenses and other pass-through funds are the only categories listed. You will need to create categories that explain how your 4-H club disperses its funds. Remember that 4-H is an educational organization, and the categories that you create should reflect that. Categories for 4-H clubs will probably look different from categories for 4-H groups, such as chartered committees and leaders associations and leaders federations. Recommended categories for 4-H clubs might include dues, meeting expenses, educational program fees, recreational expenses, and community service expenses. Let's take a look at the example that I have created here. So for fundraising expenses, this club has spent $200 this year. Dues and meeting expenses have been combined into one category, and this is perfectly fine. In that category, we have spent $153.25. For educational program expenses, the club spent $50. For recreation, the club spent $25.98. For community service, the club spent $24.99. And for other pass-through funds, we have a total of $150, which equals the amount that was collected for funds received. The total funds dispersed for this club are $604.22. Notice this is labeled as C, and again, we will be referring back to that in just a minute. This slide shows how one club tracked their expenses for the year. They used Excel to create this document. Notice across the top of the document the categories or columns they created, the date, the check number, a description of the expense, and then they listed the categories they're using for tracking expenses, including fundraising, dues, educational and club supplies, community service expenses, recreational expenses, and then finally other pass-through funds. This is one example of what you could do. There are many other options out there, or simply create your own form. Here is the total picture for your annual accounting form. The key here is to remember that A plus B minus C should equal D. So let's go back through the form again and just look at our totals. As we look at our beginning funds from the beginning of the year, labeled as A, we had $790.93. Our total funds received, or our income for the year, labeled as B, is $774.18. And our total funds dispersed throughout the year, labeled as C, is listed at $604.22 in our example. So your next step will be to add A plus B and then subtract C. So add $790.93 to $774.18 and then subtract from that $604.22. So your total then is D. So at the end of the year, you should have $960.89 as a total from your checking and savings accounts. Next, we're going to look at some things that you might want to check if these don't come out to be perfect. What happens if the totals don't match the checking and savings account statements? Well, there are a number of reasons that this could happen. I would start by checking some of the following. Are there outstanding checks that have not been cashed yet? Or did you include all interest from this checking and savings accounts? Did the bank charge you a fee that has not been entered yet? Or did you record all transactions? Perhaps you missed one. Finally, ask someone else to check your entries. This might be helpful also. If you're still having problems, feel free to reach out to your extension educator to help with the problem. At this point, the most difficult part of your financial record is completed, but there's still some information that we need to make sure that we record accurately. I have highlighted the boxes that need to be completed at the top of page 6 on your charter form. starting with the name on the account. This should be exactly as it appears on the bank statement. The bank name and the address, as well as the account number, and then list your other accounts, your other saving or savings accounts, and make sure that that information is accurate also. Next, you will have some questions to answer. Does your 4-H club have financial assets in excess of the projected expenditures for the next 2 years, or over $1,000, whichever is greater? If the answer is yes, your 4-H educator might have a discussion with you about how to reduce those funds. Does your 4-H club own land or buildings? And does your 4-H club own other property or project equipment that has a value of over $1,000? If the answer is yes, you will need to attach an inventory of any land, buildings, property, or project equipment with a value of over $500. This is necessary in order to provide proper insurance coverage for those assets. Finally, you will need some signatures. You will need the signature of your 4-H club treasurer and the date. If the treasurer is under 18 years of age, you will also need the signature of the adult leader who is overseeing the treasurer along with the date. Finally, this financial report will need to be reviewed or audited to verify that the financial account and activities are accurate. This financial review must be completed by an adult who is unrelated to the person who completes the report and who is not directly involved with the club or group's finances. It is suggested that 2 people review the report, and one of these could be a youth. Finally, whoever is reviewing the report needs to provide their signatures at the bottom of this page. At this point, we're done with the financial report, but we need to include a couple of items with your report. Be sure to include a copy of the checking account statement and the savings account statement from the end of June or the nearest date. Also include a copy of your checkbook and/or savings account registry for the year. If your club owns land or property, be sure to include an inventory of those items. Financial reports can be completed anytime after June 30th and are now due no later than September 1st. This is a change, so remember they are due by September 1st, and some counties may require those earlier. Finally, email or mail the financial report to your 4-H educator or 4-H coordinator. They will check for problems and contact you if there are errors. We hope this video helps you complete your Wisconsin 4-H financial record. We want to thank you for your time and a huge thank you for being a Wisconsin 4-H volunteer.